Hi, Deirdre here. Thanks for joining us. And let's talk seniors, memory care issues, Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson's. Some of you may know me as the person that opened up Dogwood Home, Just Like Home, memory care, senior residence for those with memory care needs. And I just love it. And I love everything to do with seniors. And I love to learn all about what I could do to help seniors and present to you what you can do as well to help your seniors. So today we have very special guests on from the Alzheimer's Association of Connecticut. And luckily for us, they just came out last week with facts and figures on what's the new latest and greatest with Alzheimer's research. So they're going to be here to share that with you, among other things. Feel free to chime in and ask questions. So with us today, we actually have Carolyn DeRocco. She's the Vice President of Programs of Education at the Alzheimer's Association, the Connecticut Chapter. And she has a degree in Human Relations from St. Joseph's College with certificates in Counseling and Human Resources. She has been working with the Alzheimer's Association Connecticut Chapter for more than 13 years. She has more than 20 years experience as a therapeutic recreation director working with individuals with dementia in a skilled nursing facility, and more than 25 years experience as a support group leader working with individuals diagnosed with dementia and their caregivers. She's a member of the Western Connecticut Area Agency on Aging Council and a former board member of the Connecticut Geriatric Society. Kristen Cusato has a little more personal story and why she joined the Alzheimer's Association. She's a former co-anchor of Good Morning Connecticut, so some of you may recognize her from there. And now she's the Director of Communications at Alzheimer's Association of Connecticut. Kristen was a journalist for more than 20 years, 11 of which she spent on News Channel 8 in New Haven. And when her mom, Linda, who was also her best friend, was diagnosed with dementia, their lives changed. She became a caregiver for her mom, helping others go through the same situation became her passion and her purpose in life. She now works for the Alzheimer's Association, raising awareness of the disease, sharing case techniques, and the very latest research towards prevention, new treatments, and eventually a cure. So I'd love to welcome Kristen and Carolyn to the stage.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I think so many people get into what they're doing and find their passion based on something that's happened to them in life. So why don't you tell us, Kristen, a little bit about your mom's journey and how you got into working with the Alzheimer's Association?
So I was in San Diego working on television at the time in 2009, and we were noticing that some things were changing with my mom. She was living back here on the East Coast, and we were noticing that she was having kind of marbly mouth, was having a hard time. She's falling a lot. Again, I was across the way, but in talking to her, the conversations weren't the same. There's a lot of repetition. When I came home, we noticed there's a lot of math mistakes in her checkbook, and she was always a to-the-penny checkbook person. She'd been leaving the garage door open at night when she went to bed. She'd gotten lost coming back from Rotary meetings, things like that. There were some falls. Anyway, multiple tests, multiple exams, and doctors, we found that she had Lewy body dementia, which is a type of dementia. And so I moved back home and helped take care of her, and was with her through her 4-year journey. And in that process, started volunteering at the Alzheimer's Association. And then I went to work for Carolyn. So I went to work for her.
And I think it makes, like, when it's your passion to help others, and so it makes you like love your job. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I also look at it as a gift from my mom. Like, I always think that, she's always taken care of me, and even through her illness, she provided me with a second career. So,
wow, that is a cool story. And Carolyn, how did you come to join Carolyn?
So I worked in a skilled nursing facility. Actually, we had a dementia unit, and I remember opening the unit for the first couple that was going to be residents at the facility. And then I just loved what I did. I did recreational therapy. I worked a lot with the families. We actually started support groups, and I learned a lot from the Alzheimer's Association. I actually went to many of the Alzheimer's Association trainings. They trained me to be a support group leader. So I was a volunteer for many years first, also volunteering for the walk. And when a job opened up, I live in New Milford in the northwest corner, to be a regional director. I was so excited to be able to join the Alzheimer's Association. And it's been 15 years, and our work is not done yet.
That's excellent. Well, not excellent, because once they do find a cure, you're out of a job, but then you'll have, find something else. That's okay. I'm sure it's okay with you. So why don't you tell us what the latest and greatest research is, since you just got your annual findings, um, and the facts and figures?
Yeah. So every year in March, the Alzheimer's Association, which is a national organization, and we are the Connecticut chapter, it's a nonprofit. They come out with the facts and figures. So what are the stats? What are the things they're really focusing on? And we do know this year that there are 80,000 people who live in Connecticut with Alzheimer's disease and twice as many caregivers. Many of those caregivers are unpaid. There are, caregivers providing 158 million hours of unpaid care.
Wow.
We know that 1 in 3 seniors dies with a form of dementia. We know that this disease, as Carolyn had mentioned earlier, is so taxing emotionally, financially, and physically. It's going to cost the nation a lot. Individually, it costs a lot of families a lot of money. But what some of the focuses are this year in special reports is paying attention to really 2 things. One thing is, what is mild cognitive impairment, or MCI? And more than 80% of Americans are not familiar with MCI. And it's subtle changes in memory and thinking, including forgetting conversations or getting lost, going to or coming from a familiar place, difficulty keeping a train of thought. And there's really difference between normal forgetting, oh, what's the name of that guy I just saw? What's his name? And dementia and mild cognitive impairment. So we really suggest that people, whenever they have any sort of memory concerns, that they take those concerns to a doctor, because that's really the important thing. It's important to get that diagnosis early. Also, the other thing that came out in talking about facts and figures is that across the country, we are running into a geriatrician shortage. So we are running into a shortage of people who are dementia experts, which is a problem because this population is aging. We are all getting older. We are living longer. So this is an issue in that regard. We had in Connecticut last year 91 geriatricians. We're going to need to triple that by 2050. So we really need people to get involved, get interested in the field, because there's a lot of us coming, a lot of us who are aging.
So, Kristen, let me ask you a little bit about the facts and figures.
Sure.
Are there more people getting Alzheimer's because they're living longer, and it's something that you get when you're older? Is that why 1 in 3 people are dying with some sort of, is that part of just living longer?
There's a lot of answers to that question. It's not a small answer. So the biggest risk factor to dementia is age. Most of the people who do get diagnosed are over the age of 65, but that's not everyone. A lot of people are diagnosed in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. My mother was diagnosed at 61, for an example.
Wow.
We have people that we know that are diagnosed in their 40s and 50s. So it's maybe we are more aware of what's going on, right? There's more of an awareness of maybe taking those concerns to a doctor. We are living longer as a population. We are aging, and I think it's a combination of knowing more of what to look for and, being aware, and the fact that we're living longer. Carolyn, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think we're hoping to get rid of some stigma. I think people are talking about it more. And so this, hopefully, we still have a long way to go, but I think people are talking about it long. And again, as people are living longer, age is the number 1 risk factor. So we are seeing it more prevalent.
Yeah, that's amazing. So if you do this MCI, as you call it, the mild cognitive impairment test, where can people get that done? And then if they find out they have it, what are things they can do?
Carolyn, why don't you explain the testing process?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, some people might be comfortable talking to their primary physician that they've had a relationship with, noticing some changes. The primary care physician may be comfortable, at least beginning the diagnostic process, or suggesting that they go for further testing, either to a neurologist, a geriatrician, or actually a diagnostic center. What's really important is, if anyone is going to the doctor with any questions, really important to bring someone with you to help. Again, if you have memory issues, right, you want to make sure somebody's there to help remind you what the conversation was. Also to take notes down with you and for you, but also what is the family seeing as well? So sometimes it's the person living with a diagnosis such as MCI, mild cognitive impairment, or sometimes it's what the family may be noticing. Sometimes it may be what a friend or colleague is noticing as well. So really important to make sure, if you have any concerns, you don't want to miss something that's reversible. So in other words, somebody who's having some memory problems, could it be a vitamin B12 deficiency, some problems with medication, problems with thyroid disease? So want to make sure that a good physical workup is done. I think it's very important.
So are you saying that some of the deficiencies or a thyroid or medication that could be wrong is causing Alzheimer's? It could cause something that looks like Alzheimer's.
Right. And we always do get this question. So what's the difference between dementia and Alzheimer's disease? So dementia is a group of symptoms. It's not a diagnosis. What do I mean by those symptoms? It's memory loss, problems with thinking, planning, cognition, executive function. What's causing that? Many, many different reasons. It could be Alzheimer's disease. It could be Parkinson's disease with dementia happening as well. As Kristen shared, Lewy body disease with her mother had. MCI is where there's forgetfulness, problems with memory, but it's not so much interfering with your ADLs and your daily living. So you do want to have that conversation. So there's many different causes. We want to make sure you rule out that it's not something physical that can be reversed.
Interesting. And is there something that they can do, any kind of research they could be part of if they have this and it's early onset?
Yeah, there's a lot of things, I think. Yeah, especially when you're first diagnosed, and we think after you've seen your doctor, call us. It's the 800 number. Thank you for putting that up there. We have a 24/7 helpline, which is available for anyone 24 hours a day, and it's for anyone who has any questions about dementia, any questions about finding a doctor, questions to ask a home care agency, questions to ask at a facility, or, hey, can I have a sit down with somebody for an hour? Because I just got hit with this as a family. We got this diagnosis and we don't know where to start. That's beautiful. That's a care consultation. And that is an hour-long sit down where we can actually share with you, guide you through the process, and offer you all the resources that we have. We have support groups. I mean, I'm kind of stealing Carolyn's thunder here, but there's a lot that you can do. There's education that you can go through. There's a lot there for you. And we don't want it to be that people say, I wish I knew about you guys when. We want everyone to know, so that if in fact your family gets this, I feel like it's family gets hit by a Mack truck, and we're there to help you put the pieces together, or at least put it back on the road in some way, shape, or form. And so there's also things you can do, like get involved in lifestyle activities. There's a lot of lifestyle research now. What can we do now to reduce our risk? But also, how can we help stave off this onset of more cognitive problems? And we're talking about lifestyle things which are pretty simple, because everything good for the heart is good for the brain. Heart healthy exercise, heart healthy eating. We are talking about the MIND or Mediterranean diet. Lots of studies on that. Studies on the importance of cognitive and social engagement, which was so challenging during COVID, right? Here we are in COVID and we can't see each other. It's a one-dimensional kind of thing. It's so hard. So that's why FaceTimes were really important, and window visits if necessary. But picking that up again, being able to see folks again, cognitive and social engagement, and watching your numbers, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, watching those things. So there's a lot of research. All those things I was just talking about are part of this US Pointer study, where we're looking at lifestyle factors on folks who have suboptimal lifestyles, who may not be exercising, who may not be eating well. And then after 2 years, we're going to take a look and see, did that reduce their risk? But backing up to people who have been diagnosed, there are research studies that they can get involved in. Or also, we say that it's for the well or unwell. If you go to Trial Match, it's the Alzheimer's Association Clinical Trial Matching Service. And I liken it to Match.com, which is a dating site. So you put all your information in, and they match you with clinical trials that you may be eligible for in your radius, in your region. And so it's up to you.
Do you need people to do trials?
So many people. If we can't go for research, if we don't have people involved in clinical trials, also a big push for diversity in clinical trials, because a lot of people in clinical trials are of the same, right? And we need to increase diversity, make sure the underserved and underrepresented communities are involved, so that we understand how the disease progresses in everybody. So clinical trials can be anything from filling out a few questionnaires a few times a year, to getting on a treadmill, to having some brain imaging. I mean, there's so much going on, all the way to drugs. So there's just so much going on in the research field.
Even if you don't have MCI or dementia yet, are there trials that you could be in, or volunteer opportunities for research?
Go into Trial Match, put your information in. I was involved in a clinical trial.
Oh, that's cool.
I had my brain imaged, and it's going to be compared as healthy data to people who have early dementia.
That is really good to know. And why is this such a female-centric disease?
Right. So 2/3 of people with Alzheimer's are women in this country, and 2/3 of caregivers are women as well. Partially, yes, that we live longer, but also there's a lot of research looking into hormonal differences, looking into how the male brain and the female brain process this disease differently. Very interesting. I was at a research conference a couple of years ago, and someone explained it like this to me. So it's kind of like a saw blade that goes, it's like little ups and downs as it goes down. And that's kind of how the way a male brain, they described it, reacts to and progresses. Whereas a female brain may be able to keep up certain things, and then it's like a waterfall. It goes straight down. So women's and men's brains, there's a lot of research into how that's different. And do we need in the future a different diagnostic test for different genders? Do we need perhaps different medications for different genders?
Wow.
We're talking about hormones, menopause. If you had a child, if you haven't had a child, there's a lot of interesting things to look at.
So it's different if you've had kids or not had kids?
Looking at all the hormonal differences, yeah.
Oh, because it switches up your hormones, not necessarily your brain, but switches up your hormones.
And the hormone reaction, yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So if people want to get involved in a clinical trial, they just go to the Alzheimer's Association in their area and they put in information and they'll be matched with the clinical trial kind of thing?
Go to alz.org/CT. That's our website. Or you can just search Alzheimer's Association trial match, and then you get the information and you can register right there.
And if you have trouble and can't navigate the website, you could always call that 1-800 number and say you're interested in joining a trial and a trial match. So you could always call that 1-800 number as well.
So Carolyn, what Kristen was talking about, the 1 hour sit down with people, if they find out like a parent or a loved one or their spouse has dementia, is that like a geriatric caregiver intake person? Like are you like social workers there that are going to tell them what lawyer they can go to, elder care lawyer to prepare? I don't know. What are you doing?
Yeah. So there's two components. So information and referral. So someone may call up and just say, I want to know about where the nearest support group is in my area, or is there an educational program I can go to? So that would be given an information referral. As far as like if somebody would need legal advice or looking for home care services, we have what's called a community resource finder, which is a national database where you put your zip code in and it will list different agencies, whether it's skilled nursing, assisted living, geriatricians, neurologists, elder lawyers in your area. So we would give them lists to be able to go through and select. So that's that one part where we call it information referral. The other is what we call care consultations, which is really listening to the needs of the person, being a sounding board, being someone on the other end of the phone that understands dementia, Sometimes it's just venting and listening, just, letting somebody vent and you're listening to them. Sometimes it's helping them guide them through this journey. What are some next steps? Maybe driving is an issue. We can send them topic sheets on how to have best communication strategies. We may suggest educational programs to attend, support groups to attend. And then for those living with, a lot of people don't realize that we have a whole section on our website called I Have Alzheimer's. Someone in my group recently said, I was diagnosed, this was 8 years ago, and she said, I'm not dying tomorrow. So how do I learn to live well today? And they get together and there's groups. There's one thing on our computer, on our website, that's I Have Alzheimer's, living well, watching videos. But then we also have what we call social engagement programs, where people who are aware they have the diagnosis, and again, not everyone has the insight that they have the diagnosis, but they're aware of it. They want to talk to others. They want to socialize. They want to be in a safe environment where it's okay if I repeat the same story or I can't think of a word. We have museum programs. We're looking at artwork together. We play music bingo. We have sing-along programs. We have reading to connect programs. So many things going on. I think the two words I'd want our listeners to know is education and support. Those are the two key words. Educate yourself on the disease, understanding the journey and the progression, and then also knowing that it is okay to ask for help. You are not alone, and there's lots of support out there for you.
Are there any free services? Oftentimes people call me and they are not near their parents. So the parents might live in Connecticut, but they are calling in from Texas, California, and saying, wow, I'm talking to my parent and they need support. What if they can't afford it or refuse it and they're in their home? But are there people that will go in and just, I don't know, help them for free? Is there any?
So our programs, our educational programs in the community are free educational programs, and our care consultations are free. Often our consultants may suggest a care manager. Again, we know this is progressive, so they may suggest a care manager or an elder lawyer to see. But our programs are free to the community, for the education, and our support groups are also free at no cost.
I interviewed somebody a few weeks ago, and she started a nonprofit called You Are Community. Your Community. You Are Community. And do you know her?
No.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe you know her. And she wants to do it nationally, but she's doing it in Connecticut. She's about 500 volunteers. I'll send you ladies a link, and I'll tell everybody now, You Are Community. You Are Community, or Your. And she matches up seniors with people that can volunteer. She vets out the volunteers. So she'll gets volunteers to drive them or go water their lawn or feed their pets or do whatever. A lot of people are homebound, or they might have dementia, and their kids have called in to say they need some help, but they're in the beginning stage, so they're okay. But they might need some help doing things. So that might be a good hookup for you. I will also write to her and tell her about you. But I find that especially during COVID, so many people didn't realize their parents had declined, and you can speak to somebody over the phone and they sound like you and I are having this conversation now. Then you go to their house and they've been hoarding food and they haven't showered, and they have, stuff stashed in their only shower. So, they're not taking a shower. So it's like, you don't realize when you're speaking to somebody necessarily that, they have it, they have something going on. So what are some of the signs people should be looking for besides repetition?
Yeah. So we have a whole program, again, if on our website, free, called the 10 warning signs. So one would be memory changes, but and it's changes, right? So it's memory changes. So if somebody didn't know birthdays their whole life and all of a sudden they don't remember birthdays, that's one thing. But if, my mother knows everyone's birthday and every anniversary, when she stops knowing that, I'll worry. So memory changes that interrupt daily living. Also, we see problems with familiar tasks. And the key word here is familiar. So it's not, giving grandma or your spouse a new, cell phone that they have to learn how to use, right? But this is something that they were always able to do. Kristen, I know you always shared with your mom. Your mom always loved to have coffee, and then all of a sudden you started visiting mom, and mom was making tea. Much easier to pour a cup of tea than to make many steps in making a pot of coffee. So we know having trouble with familiar tasks, problems with reading. Speaking, word finding difficulties, problems with planning. So even planning a grocery list, planning my day, planning a Thanksgiving meal, those would be difficult. We also see problems with some behavior, some personality changes. Somebody may withdraw from social engagement. They don't know how to play the card game any longer. Rather than share that, they may just no longer go and attend. They may not go to the football game because they can't follow all the rules of the game anymore. So we see many different signs. And again, we have a whole program called the 10 warning signs that you can listen to people experiencing what they've gone through, and caregivers also noticing some of those signs in people.
And how important is it to know the differences? Like Kristen was saying, your mom had Lewy body. How important is it to know Lewy body as opposed to the other kinds of Alzheimer's? Are there different treatments or different ways to deal with a person and interact with them?
Yeah, they all present a little bit differently, right? But eventually most of the dementias end up in the same situation. So I would say one of the differences that I knew from Lewy body that I learned was that she could not receive, because of what was happening in her brain, a certain type of drug in the ER. So if she had some sort of episode or something, or she had an infection and she was kind of lashing out or angry, a certain drug may end her life. So there are certain things that you need to know about the different types, but I think it varies, right? I mean, I think sometimes people say, oh, he just had dementia. We don't know. He doesn't have Alzheimer's yet. Well, he has dementia. What type does he have? Because it may mean that you can do some different things.
Yeah. And sometimes with the Lewy body, we may see some people who have more hallucinations. That's a key factor, but also someone who has a frontal temporal dementia, we may see more behavior changes and inhibitions change rather than memory first. I think even with Lewy body or Parkinson's disease with some dementia, increased risk of falls and visual perception. So it would be important to know what are some of the other factors besides just memory that may be imposed because of this disease. As far as learning effective communication strategies and understanding and responding to dementia-related behaviors, those trainings would be the same no matter what type of dementia we were educating the families on.
We had somebody with, I want to say aphasia. Is that how, am I saying it properly?
Mhm.
And so he couldn't speak, aphasia dementia, and you had to just look directly at him. He didn't have any peripheral vision or anything. You had to look directly at him and talk, and he seemed to understand what you're saying, but he couldn't speak or really acknowledge.
Yeah.
So I guess it's knowing what kind somebody has to know how to work with them.
But there's some things that are generic across the board. Like we always say that one of the biggest light bulb moments for caregivers is the fact that you really need to meet your person where they are. You really need to go into their reality, because if they're saying that they are 30 years old and they have to go to work at wherever they used to work, it doesn't help you or them if you say, no, mom, you're 67 and you're not working anymore. Back it up. Realize that that's where she is now in her head. It's the disease talking. Join her there. Oh, what do you do at work? What time do you have to leave in the morning? Oh, goodness, I don't know how I could get up that early. So it's a kind of validating them where they are, going into that, making sure they feel safe. Safe is such an important term, safety. And then going from there. And it's sometimes if it's like, I have to go to work, I have to get out of the house, there are tricks that you can learn to distract, right? So you validate and you make sure, and then you redirect them to something else.
Oh, it's Sunday. You don't have to work today. You're off.
When we teach, we always say focus on, because we know this is a disease that affects cognition, thinking, planning, reasoning. So we always say, but the heart's there, the love is there. The amygdala part of the brain is actually still intact through this disease process. So I always say you want to focus on the feelings, not the fact. So what is that person experiencing? What are they expressing? What are they feeling? And how is my response going to make them feel? So focus on feelings rather than facts when you're working with somebody and caring for a loved one with dementia.
Well, I think that is so critical because ever since I started working with seniors, I have shared this with all my friends who have parents that are in their 80s and 90s who are either starting to go into dementia or Alzheimer's or have something going on. And none of them know that. So I think, because who knows till you know something, right? And I had a girlfriend whose mom crashed her car and she was 90 and she called her 10 times a day. Where's my car? Where's my money? I want my money. I have my money. Why aren't you releasing my money? Give me my money so I can buy a car. So my girlfriend got tired of telling her you smashed your car. So she took a picture of her mother's smashed car, put it on her refrigerator. And then, because they lived 2 hours away. And so every time her mom called her, she had her walk to the refrigerator and show her the smashed car, which really agitated her mom. And I said, oh my God, just tell your mom, take that down and just tell your mom,
right.
We're going to go car shopping when I come this weekend. And what kind of car do you want? And her mother got all excited and then called her the next day. Said the same thing. She's like, oh, good, we're going to go car shopping. They never went car shopping. But she was so much happier.
Right. And these are the things we teach in our educational programs, really. Yeah.
So critical because I think people think they're trying to help them remember, but there's no need for that.
One of the things I think is really important when we teach, I like to always show the picture of a brain. So a healthy brain weighs about 3 pounds. Upon the disease progression, it shrinks to 1.5 pounds. So there's significant atrophy. So with these dementias, there's cell death. And I think often to show whether it's professionals or family caregivers that it's not being done on purpose, that there's a disease process here that's, damaging the brain. And I think having that visual is often very helpful.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It is. And this always progresses. Is that true? Alzheimer's always gets worse. It doesn't stabilize.
It is considered a progressive disease, yes. And it varies. Again, as Kristen said, everyone is very individual. We say a person can live between 2 and 20 years, average maybe about 8, depending on other comorbidities and lifestyles. But it is a progressive disease. And that's why we're here for the journey. You can call us when somebody's first showing signs until end of life. We're here to support you through that journey on our helpline number. So
do you think there'll be a cure for Alzheimer's one day?
So right now, what's exciting is that there's a lot of research happening, and there's a lot of research happening in Connecticut. We at the Alzheimer's Association are funding $2.2 million in research here in Connecticut at places like Yale and UConn Health and UConn Stores. And at Yale, for example, there's a doctor there who's looking at really rare forms of dementia, which present with visual or language issues. And that was that trial that I was involved in. Up at UConn Health, there is a gentleman who we're funding who's looking at using brain imaging, the connection between depression and Alzheimer's. There's somebody at UConn Stores who's working on getting towards a blood test as a diagnostic tool. Because wouldn't it be amazing if the doctors could use part of a blood test to diagnose this disease? Right now, it's autopsy, PET scans where you can see the live brain, spinal taps where you look at the cerebral spinal fluid, all pretty invasive. So in a couple of years, wouldn't it be amazing if we could have blood tests as a potential? Mm-hmm. There's also a different kind of study happening that we're funding out of Yale, talking about the exit from the ER and what's happening with caregivers and what's happening with patients to try to reduce the amount of repeats to the ER, which we know happens quite often with folks with this disease and caregivers as well. So research is really happening. There's a lot of research into medications. A lot of the medications we had up until last year only dealt with symptoms. Then last year we had a medication that was finally approved by the FDA that is disease modifying. It's supposed to go up and grab those amyloid plaques and pull it away. It is first generation drug. It is not totally covered. So all we know is that we're excited that we're starting the process, right? We've got a bunch of drugs in the pipeline. There could be 2 to 5 drugs that are even closer to getting FDA approved that could modify the disease. And we were told just the other day, there are more than 100 potential new treatments in the pipeline going back, over the whole clinical trial process. Wow. So there's a lot of really important research happening to help families with this disease, not only prevent, right, with the reducing risk, but also once you get it to kind of stave off the speed of the cognitive decline and give families more time. And that's what's really important.
That would be amazing if it could be a blood test. That would be amazing. And Kristen, is this hereditary?
There is a small portion that is genetic. If you have 2 copies of a certain gene, you are at a greater risk. And the people who have a loved one, a parent or a sibling, you are at a greater risk, but it doesn't mean you're going to get it. There's a very, very small population that it is hereditary. Very small. I think it's less than 4% that it's guaranteed hereditary.
So are you encouraging people who have people with Alzheimer's in their family to come to the trial, or just anybody, even if you don't have Alzheimer's in the family?
We find that people getting involved in clinical trials is a way for them to be empowered. And I think that it's also a way for people to say, well, I couldn't fix my loved one. I couldn't help them. I could give them love, but we can't. But so maybe I can do something for a future generation. Mm-hmm. So I think it's really, really important for anybody to get involved in clinical trials if they have the ability. And clinical trials can be, like I said, as benign as filling out something on the computer or having one MRI. Which doesn't require an agent. It's not a PET scan. So there's a lot of different choices.
Excellent. And Carolyn, how can people, what kind of volunteer opportunities are there for people that want to get involved?
Yes. So, we're really trying to, just as you said, so many people don't know we're here. So we're really trying to increase reach. So we have volunteer opportunities for people to become community educators to help teach these common programs, such as the 10 warning signs, effective communication strategies, understanding, responding to behaviors. So I would love, if anybody's interested, to help volunteer and learn curriculum and help teach the community. Also support groups. They are so important and so beneficial for families. So we need support group leaders, facilitators to help lead those groups, as well as groups for those living in the early stage. And then Kristen, right, we could want to talk about the walk volunteers that we need to kind of help with our walks around the state.
So we were lucky last year to be able to go back in person for our Walks to End Alzheimer's. It's our biggest signature fundraiser. We have 6 this fall across the state, and they're in September, October. And we would love for people to get involved with committees or get involved with Walk Day volunteering. The whole point of being at that walk is so powerful if you've never been. Everyone gets a flower. I think it's behind me there. Yeah, there. One of the flowers of that different color. And it represents different parts of the disease process. Purple if you have lost someone. Yellow if you're a caregiver. Wow. And everyone at one point holds up their flowers, and it's just a sea of flowers. And that shows you that you're not alone. It shows you there are thousands and thousands of people who are going through this or who have been through this. And that's what we want people to know. You can call the helpline. You can call us. We have so many resources. You don't have to do it alone.
Excellent.
I think one of the things, Kristen, too, I've mentioned as far as volunteers, people who want to have a voice, we have volunteers with advocacy. that want to share their story and speak to legislators about making a difference, increasing funding for research, increasing, making this a public health initiative. So really, if you want to have a voice and share your story, we want volunteers to be our advocates as well.
Yeah, I would love to see every state have Medicaid provide for people with Alzheimer's instead of Medicare. Instead of just Medicaid.
Yeah, it's a very costly disease, and we need advocates to help write letters and speak and share their journey. And I think helping get rid of stigma and not being afraid to talk about it is where we're going to move forward.
Do you think there's still stigma for having dementia or Alzheimer's?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I think people say we don't want to talk about it. Some people in some cultures don't want to even talk about it at all. They just bring mom or dad in the house and just take care of them. There's a lot of benefits to seeing a doctor and reaching out to us and getting some skills and, planning for your future. So we really encourage everyone to reach out.
I think some people still think it's a normal part of aging. As we age, we should get this, and it's not. This is a disease, and I think that's something, again, we want to make sure people are educated to know this is not normal aging.
But if it happens when you age and there isn't really a cure.
But so there may not be a cure right now, but there's absolutely, and we wouldn't be here today speaking if we didn't believe that support and education are going to make a difference for the quality of life for the person living with the disease and the caregiver to learn those techniques to really, again, live well and continue to stay connected and share beautiful moments with their loved ones. So there's absolutely things we can do to make a difference.
That's beautiful. I appreciate it. Ladies, excellent information, great news. If anybody wants to volunteer with the Alzheimer's Association, they should call 800, or should they call your hotline if they want to volunteer?
Sure.
Absolutely.
Okay. Call the helpline at 800-272-3900. If you have questions, if you need a geriatric social worker, if you need an elder care lawyer, if you just want some education on it, if you're experiencing this, if you want to help, be a community advocate, go on the walk, whatever you want, donate money, you could just call the helpline. It sounds like they will take care of everything you have a question on, right?
Direct you to the right person, correct.
They'll direct you to the helpline. And you can call at 3 a.m, obviously, 24/7. So thank you so much for coming on. And it's all great news about things that, that blood test sounds so promising. If that could be a thing in the near future.
Keep in touch, and follow us on our Facebook pages and our other social media, or you can also call and say, I want to be added to our email list. We send out a list of all our education programs every 2 weeks. And we also have a lot of research coming forward and research information and local researchers doing talks. So we can share.
Is your Facebook page alz.org/CT?
Facebook page is at ALZCT.
Okay.
That's the handle for the Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at ALZCT.
Okay, super. Well, thank you so much, Kristen and Carolyn. Much appreciated. I hope you come back next year and give us great news on the latest study. But we look forward to seeing you on the walk, and hopefully we'll see a lot of people on the walk and raise a lot of money so you can keep doing the great work you're doing.
Thank you so much for having us.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. We'll see you again. That was Kristen and Carolyn. They are pretty impactful, and what the work they do is amazing. And I love that it's from their heart that they participate with Alzheimer's, and you could tell they just love what they do, and they're hoping to find a cure and working towards it. And even before a cure, just as they said, quality of life for people with Alzheimer's, because you could live with it for 20 years. Your heart's there, your brain might have shrunk, but your heart is there. And what to do and how to really make a beautiful quality of life for people that are suffering with this disease. They're not trying to, do something just to bother you. It is a disease. They cannot help it. And knowing how to interact with them, how to do what's best for them, how to meet them where they are, is all part of the training that's available to you for free from the Alzheimer's Association of Connecticut. So please call them. 800-272-3900 and get the information. You'll be glad you did. You don't want to get it too late. You want to start early. So thank you again, ladies. And I really appreciate you coming on. And thanks so much for joining us on Let's Talk Seniors Memory Care Issues, here to bring you all the latest and greatest on what's going on with seniors in Connecticut. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, Deirdre here again. Thank you for joining me on Let's Talk Seniors Memory Care Issues. Is this an issue hitting home? Do you have a parent or loved one with memory care issues who feels not safe at home anymore? Are isolation, falls, and safety issues becoming a big concern? Welcome to Dogwood Senior Home, premier boutique residential senior living specializing in memory care. It's country living at its best in the Huntington section of Shelton, Connecticut. Senior residential homes are concepts sweeping the nation with 47,000 across the U.S. We're pleased to open Dogwood Senior Home as it will be only number 6 for Connecticut. Brand new, sparkling clean, and safe. We are COVID-free. Residential care homes boast a very low COVID infection rate across the nation. This is due to the intimacy of size and speed in which the caretakers can shift to accommodate immediate needs. They are much safer than the large homes and facilities, as you can imagine. It has been documented that residents have less falls and a better quality of life in a residential home environment. Our home is more affordable than the big box facility. You pay one all-inclusive price, and that price is guaranteed for the life of the resident. With an incredible 1-to-3 caregiver ratio, which you won't find anywhere else. Our friendly, loving caregivers are dedicated and trained in Alzheimer's, dementia, and Parkinson issues. Call me at 203-689-7562 for a talk and tour. I would love to meet you and your loved one. See you soon. Bye.